Hello there, Sarah from 17 once again. This is my NieR B ending very hard walkthrough. This is chapter 2, it's Resistance Camp, and from this point onwards guys, the rest of this walkthrough is going to be on the very hard difficulty. I swapped from hard to very hard because the first chapter has no checkpoint, these ones do. So as much as I like to chastise this game for its poor checkpoint implementation, at least it lets you save. You know, I've got to give it credit when it does something, you know, that games have been doing for the last 20 years without credit. But 9S, what is different? What is new? What are we going to be doing? How are we going to be playing? So he is kind of like a slimmed down version of 2B. He can only carry one weapon because his triangle will always be hack. His one weapon is going to be quite interesting because it combines both square and triangle actions in one action, so it can be quite difficult to get certain moves that you might have done playing as the other character, so you'll need to get used to this. And the moves that we're going to be using with him are of course standard square combos, which will just be his normal hits. Jump and square will be his launcher into his air combo, and then if you do backdash attack, backdash attack, backdash attack, which is just dashing without using any direction on the input, you will do a specific dashing combo that he does. And his dash move is like a double-handed thrust, where he fires a shockwave at people if you have the shockwave equipped, which is what we're going to be going for. Here's me messing around with some invisible walls, which are always fun. And that's kind of it, because he doesn't swing the sword with his hand, he uses telekinesis to do it and swing it in a weird fashion. So a lot of the hits can be quite slower than you're used to, but they have a lot more range than you're used to as well. So he has quite a few skills up his sleeve, and then he has access to all the things that 2B did. So all the weapons that you upgraded with her will now be available for him, all of the pods, all of the abilities, all of the chips, all of that stuff. And now there's going to be hacking chips that are now available as well. These are chips that will give you passives and bonuses for hacking, and if you want to go down the hacking route, feel free to do so because it is very powerful, but you're going to play lots of that minigame, so get good at it or you'll be in trouble. That's about it. It's pretty much the same. This campaign I think is easier than 2B's because all the moments that are new have you doing things that are easier. Just objectively easier things. While she was fighting bosses that had bad checkpoints and horrible runbacks, you're going to be going through hacking simulations that don't have fail states, so you can hack as many times as you want and you're fine. Like, he gets a really easy way through a lot of the game. And then the rest of the game is moments that he did with her, so you've already played them before. So get used to that, because as I've mentioned, I don't want people to get their expectations of this campaign too high, because it's just a retread. It's straight up retread with a couple of new sequences which were great, but it would have been better if, I think, if they'd have been in that other playthrough, because they would have extended it and given us more of a connection to 2B, to 9S, sorry. Because you'll remember, on my playthrough, if anybody watched my playthrough, I did not feel attached to I'm saying all the wrong things now, to 9S at all. I didn't really care too much about 2B. I cared more about A2 than I did anybody else, because she was interesting, she was mysterious, you know, she seemed to understand what was going on, and I wanted to know what she knew. But these ones were just ciphers for nothing. Like, she's got a great ass, but that only gets you so far. Did I not change the difficulty? What am I doing? Oh, I tell a lie, guys, that situation just then was also on hard. Now we're on very hard. The good news is I didn't get hit in that moment, so it wouldn't have made a difference, but I've obviously left in the changing of the difficulty to show people when it happened. Ooh, this is new too. Remember all those chests that you came across and you couldn't open them, and you were like, what the hell's the point in a chest you can't open? Well, it's because it was for this guy instead, and that's something that you're going to be looking into. We're also going to be able to open a door and get one of those legendary weapons that Masamoon was talking about, and it's just a more powerful version of weapons we already have, so you're not really getting too much except for a bit of a stat increase, which can be nice, but you don't really need it. We're beginning this game at level 27, and a lot of the bosses are going to be pretty much close to our level and lower. Some of them later on will be higher, but some of the early bosses are going to drop really fast because their level just isn't that high. as I mess around with this sword I just picked up, which is a really jarring gold winged blade. I'm going to go immediately for the save point in this, one would think. I'm also going to be showing you a chest that you can get at the beginning, because I'm always curious as to what's in it, because I forget what's in things. But is there anything else that needs to be told about 9S's journey? I'm trying to think. He gets the new chips, you can hack the stuff, he has the different movesets. Pretty much all the stuff it has you doing that's new is easier than what you did with the other girl. There is very hard hacking, by the way, you see that? But it doesn't kill you instantly, which is really generous of it. And this is going to fuck me up, I think, 2 times. Oh no. It's easy to make a mistake with those. Look at all the stuff we got as well. Pristine cables, sturdy sockets, large batteries. That's all good stuff for making better weapons. And we're going to need better weapons, because as we inherit the things from our previous characters, we've got decent damage, but we can always do more. So, explore the environment, pick up the stuff. The mission is the same as last time. We're going to go to the resistance camp, and they're going to give us the task of doing a couple of fetch quests. After the fetch quests, the town will open up, and then we will be going towards the desert to kill the robots, to meet up with Adam or Eve, whichever one comes out of that womb of machines, where all the robots are doing cunnilingus, which is confusing and weird, but good for them. And then we can get on with the rest of the game. But let's talk about some of the things in this game that I think are really interesting and I would like to have seen more of. So, one of the things that I thought this game was going to do is I thought it was going to give you the opportunity to navigate the environment in the ship. I thought they were going to give perhaps, you know, the 3D perspective that we had at the beginning of this walkthrough, where we were moving around that cross-shaped area. I was hoping there was going to be that in this area, and the area itself would change to afford certain, you know, shmup elements and combat and things. Like, I thought there were going to be more flying enemies, more shuttlecrafts and things of that nature that would perhaps be attacking you, or even other Yoha units using those flight crafts. And what I was really hoping for was an option to get resources inside the Yoha unit that you can't get outside of it. So it would force people who wanted to get good stuff to use that mechanic, and then the mechanic, once they were there, would be so interesting that they'd want to do it anyway. And you could have been, you know, hoarding resources, you could have been mining certain parts of the city where you would go up to it and do an interaction, maybe a minigame, and it would get you a certain amount of resources. And it would just change how you approached the area. And then those resources could go into making, you know, the best weapons or the best chips or creating something fun and interesting. And that could have been really, really cool. And then they could have taken it to a different perspective and, you know, flipped the game on its head, put it into a bird's eye view like a classic vert shmup. And then you could have navigated the world like that. And it could have been completely different with enemies coming in and stuff. And just opportunities to do interesting stuff. Like, I thought that the fast travel would put you in the flight unit and you'd have to do a shmup level a little bit similar to Kingdom Hearts' Gummy Ship, only with the mechanics of this game and a lot more fun in a lot of ways. Even though Kingdom Hearts 2 nailed it, I think. I thought the Gummy Ship was great in that. Just more implementations of the parts that they did really well. And I didn't see too much of that. Another area that I think is really fascinating is just how many weapons there are. The weapons, for the most, are all cosmetic. The different types, of course, have different combos, and as you upgrade them, they get more combos, but for the most, they're all pretty similar in how the relationship between them and each other and the combos that you use with them. So once you get them to level 4, you will have pretty much seen everything that they have to do, and you're not going to be surprised by anything really new. And then it becomes more about how you creatively use it for the situation, with things like Shockwave, with the launchers and relaunching and moves like that. So it is simpler than your average Platinum game in a lot of ways, but there still is the depth when it comes to timing and spacing and juggling, which is nice. But it's not too ridiculous that it's going to take over your life learning it, which is also good for a more accessible game. But there's so many weapons. There's tons of weapons, and some of them look cool, some of them look stupid, and then each of them have got, you know, the different statistics and the different abilities, and I thought all of this was going to be way more elaborate than it is. I expected us to be able to maybe customize the combo on the weapons, you know, by maybe crafting one weapon with another weapon, it unlocked a different combo, like a hybrid combo. Imagine if you crafted a sword with a spear, and it interpolated the movesets of both to create a new one. and you could do that to get all these different custom movesets and add a little bit more of a dimension of depth. But that doesn't exist. I was also hoping that you're going to be able to use the crafting system to pick a sword that you liked and perhaps use another weapon along with some resources to craft that ability onto the other weapon. But that doesn't exist. And don't get me wrong, I'm not asking for NieR where it's all super convoluted and messy and the menus are ridiculous and half the shit you don't even need to do, but half the other stuff you can do, and it's so incrementally improving that you feel like you're wasting your money for 20 hours until finally it feels like it made a difference. Like, I think that's a little bit too far the other way, but it would have been nice to have the option. Because there are weapons that give you damage bonuses for being full life, there are weapons that give you damage bonuses for being low life, some give you stuns, some give you crit ups. It would have been nice to control it and you know, use a weapon you really like that might not necessarily have a good ability, and then combine it with a good ability and come out on top and have knowledge, you know, superseding function. That would have been great, but they didn't go that way. Instead, they kind of focused on the chips, and I think the chips are really interesting. Like the taunt, for instance. Taunt is a chip that I think people are going to sleep on because they don't realise just how incredibly powerful it is, and I think a lot of people will be scared away by the fact that the game says, you know, it increases your damage by 280%, but it also increases your enemy's damage. And people see that and they think, Jesus Christ, why would I want to give the enemy nearly 300% more damage? They're already hurting me a lot. Well, on very hard, they kill you in one hit, so what the fuck does it matter? Taunt becomes almost like a mandatory application if you want to deal good damage without earning it. And that's what you want to do. If you find Taunt, or you can get to an avenue where you can purchase it, purchase a lot of it, and then fuse it together and get the highest thing you can until you stack, I think you can stack 2, I think it's 400% the cap on Taunt, it might be less, but I think it's 400. You get 400% extra damage, you use one of those ranged bonuses, and your gun is going to do more damage than you've ever seen. And you can kill things from a distance comfortably and beat a lot of the game. Like, that is a valid strategy. You can do that if you want to, and I recommend you do. The problem is, unless you're playing as A2, who has a really cool taunt, you have to click the analog stick repeatedly to blink your light at things, and then the taunt happens, and that's when you get the damage. And in the time it's took you to blink your bloody light, you might be dead, which I think is annoying as fuck and stupid, and I don't know why they did it that way, but they did. I'm beyond trying to understand why they did certain things in this game. Doesn't it look beautiful when the green is here? I love this area when it's colourful. As soon as they start greying it out, it makes me wonder who thought that was a good idea. It's really strange. Maybe they're like that woman in House. You know that woman who got her sight back but the world looked ugly? And it turned out her brain was misinterpreting signals sent from her eyes, and she was seeing the world in like a bad filter. And he healed her, and everything was not necessarily beautiful, but it was what it was supposed to look like. And she cried because she was moved. Like, maybe it's like that. That guy has that, so he doesn't realise that black and white looks like shit to people with functioning eyes. I don't know. But the looting system too. The loot system in NieR is really interesting, because you have this idea of a pool of items that are randomly picked when you pick them up. So at any point you can find really rare things or absolutely worthless things, and you never quite know which. So it leads to a lot of luck, a lot of providence taking place, but also opportunities to get really cool stuff early on, and if you can recognise what the cool stuff is, you can get a great advantage. I love the idea of that, but I hate the idea of not being able to manipulate it and control it, because it leads to more farming than actually skillfully acquiring items. I would prefer if it was fixed, and you had to really work hard to exploit it by maybe transporting back to the bunker, coming back to respawn it and such. And don't get me wrong, such exploitation can be boring and annoying as shit. Did anybody play Star Ocean 4? Where when you wanted to make those things respawn, those green energy bits and those rock areas where you could mine and get energy and get items, you had to go to a different area and come back. But if you were on the later disc, you had to swap discs every time you moved between areas. So it led to, every time you wanted to replenish those supplies to farm them again, you had to keep swapping discs. Like, what the fuck, man? Who thought that was a good idea? So stupid. I hated that, and I don't know if they fixed that when they released it on PlayStation 3, because of course, didn't PlayStation 3 have Blu-rays and Xbox didn't? so they had way more size and way more on the disc. And I hope they did for anyone who played it. But if you played it originally, it was fucking tedious. And I wouldn't want it to be like that. I would just like it so that you had to, you know, get creative with it. Because what I've done on this game is if you teleport away and you teleport back, it replenishes it. So you only have to watch the load screen, which is longer than it should be, but it's not bad. And then you can keep on picking things up, because I've kind of experimented with farming areas to see if I could get anything solid to give people advice in this. I still don't know how to get gold fast in this game. I've got an idea, but it still takes a while. And at the beginning of the game, the best thing to do, I think, is fish. Put a movie on, start fishing, and fish in some of the spots where there's some of the exotic animals, and hopefully get lucky. If you fish for like 2 hours, you'll get a ton of fish, and then you sell it all for gold, and it gives you a nice bump up. But it isn't exactly 100,000 gold in 10 minutes. That stuff right now is yet to be discovered, and I'm pretty ignorant of it. But thank you for watching, and you take care now.